Welcome to IoT Week at CES. I'm Keith Kreisher, the Executive Director of the IoT M2M Council, and this is our News Desk Live video program. With 25,000 product makers and designers, OEMs, enterprise users, and apps developers as members, the IMC is the largest professional organization dedicated to the global IoT sector. Our mission is to accelerate the adoption of IoT technology for the public good. And we look at this session with our good sustaining member company, Gertem, as exactly in keeping with that mission. I'd like to introduce my friend Sergei Leuchanka from Gertem. Sergei, first of all, just tell us a little bit about your role in the company.
First of all, Keith, thank you so much for having me over. It's a great pleasure. So my name is Sergei Leuchanka, and I'm a VP of Business Development for Gertem's flespi product.
Great. Let's get right into it. You know, we're here at CES. Obviously, there's a lot of activity in the IoT section of the show right here. What's a key driver that's moving the IoT industry forward these days?
Yeah, absolutely. So, there's certainly a number of things that I think are more obvious when it comes to driving IoT forward. Things such as availability of IoT-specific connectivity options that are, growing. And affordability of that. There's plenty of new hardware, sensors, devices that are give you ability to capture necessary information to analyze, etc. But I think one of the things that really stands out to me that was made kind of obvious to me last time at CES when I came by Accenture booth. Interestingly enough, is the digitization of just about everything these days. You look at the whole, range of sectors from manufacturing to transportation to retail. A lot of stuff. A lot of that stuff is getting disrupted. There's a lot of need for kind of rethinking technology approaches. So, one thing that really stood out to me. When I spoke to folks at Accenture, which is a huge consulting company that derives a lot of their revenue from advising companies on digital transformation, is that for fiscal year 2021, they had about $50 billion, right, in revenue. Going into fiscal year 2022, their projection was to grow at 12%. Now, only 3 months, 1 quarter in that fiscal year 22, they raised their projection from 12% to 20%. And remember, that's on the base of $50 billion, right? So that in itself was telling, very telling to me, because I think you'd be hard-pressed to find a company on the Fortune 500 list that either is not or has not been a client of Accenture at some point in the past. Sure. And IoT is obviously a very important part of that, digital transformation, technology transformation that Accenture advises their clients on. So I think that's the general, again, digitization theme. I think is a very important and large driving force there.
Interesting. We've done some of our own research, as you know, and we find just one indicator. We see a lot more people identifying as digital transformation than we've ever seen before, and we've got hard statistics to show it. So, couldn't agree more. Digitization is a real happening, and it's obviously good for our sector. But this year, the economy took a pretty significant hit, both in the U.S. and globally. How optimistic are you that this digitization will continue?
Tough word.
It is a tough word. And I'm a native speaker of English, I think.
Yeah.
So, go ahead.
That's a good observation there, Kit. But I think that's probably part of the kind of natural economic cycle, right? I mean, you never see the economy kind of growing for a very extended period of time in the straight line. It's always like up and down, but the general trajectory is upwards, right? Certainly it's a challenging environment right now. On the flespi side, we work with a lot of startups, and that's probably the type of companies that got hit the hardest, right? All of a sudden, the financing dried up, the cost of capital went through the roof, given the Fed, increased the interest rates considerably. But it's a temporary scenario. it's not something that gonna significantly impact the potential for the IoT. It's from my point of view, just slowing things down temporarily. Going back to Accenture example, interestingly enough, they were able to deliver on those fiscal year 22, extremely aggressive, right? 20% growth on the $50 billion. That's $10 billion, added revenue in just 1 year.
Especially
just
in a pandemic economy. I mean, that's really quite.
Sorry?
Especially in a pandemic economy.
Yeah.
I mean, that's really quite significant.
Exactly. As we're coming out of pandemic, so very, very impressive. Another good example is Samsara that went public a little bit more than a year ago. Certainly the valuation is way down, but that's the case across the technology sector in general. However, they keep beating the forecasts, and on the most recent quarter that they did the same in terms of the revenue growth. So I think fundamentals are there, and it's just this temporary phase that we have to get through. But no long-term issues that I see.
Right. Terrific. But you mentioned just now flespi. So talk to us a little bit about Gertem's role in the IoT ecosystem.
Yeah, absolutely. So Gertem has been developing software in IoT and telematics space for the last 20 years. We have two flagship products. One is Wheelon, which is the end-to-end IoT telematics platform, which is mostly aligned with the fleet management vertical. And flespi is a hardware-agnostic back-end application enablement platform, which is really a foundation to help build a variety of IoT and telematics applications. So, it's a very exciting space. So between Wheelon and flespi, we have close to 4 million connected assets at this point. And flespi is relatively young, just 3 to 4 years of commercial application, but we doubled the number of assets in just last year on flespi side.
Just further to that, I know Gertem has a truly global footprint. Can you talk to us a little bit about that? Where are you guys most active, and where you're looking to be more active? Yeah,
I think the last figures are we probably in over 150 countries globally.
Wow.
We truly have a global footprint. We headquartered in Lithuania, have offices in the United States, Argentina, Buenos Aires, and Dubai and the UAE. There's so much IoT and telematics growth across the board. We've catered to a variety of different verticals, certainly, very exciting to be part of it.
Right, great stuff. It's interesting, but do you see? I mean, essentially, Gertem plays a role of an outsourced solution when it comes to IoT deployments. Is there an inherent risk in outsourcing such a critical part of an operation as the IoT component?
Yeah, I think that question would probably relate more to the flespi side of things, where we are that foundation, that backend. Right. To a custom solution that our customer is building, and that's a question that comes up less and less often, and I think there are really two sides to it. On the one hand, there are certainly businesses which are very conservative that want to build everything in-house, just because they can and they think it's the right thing to do, but they really sacrifice the speed and the agility, and ultimately we feel they sacrifice their competitiveness when they do so, because from our point of view, you really want to put your resources where you create the most value and the most value that resonates with your client. A lot of the back-end stuff that we enable and assist with, it's not something that their clients really kind of recognize the value, right? There's certainly a more kind of objective reasons companies may not want to do it. For example, regulatory and other aspects. Some countries do not allow sending their residents' data outside that country. For example, Jordan, that's the case there. But for the most part, I think Amazon AWS and Microsoft Azure showed us a good example of how something that everybody felt so close to, their IT infrastructure, it's actually totally okay to outsource and not deal with, right? And put your resources where you can get more bang for the buck for the in terms of investment.
Right. We're here at CES. Obviously, consumer electronics show, emphasis on mass consumer IoT sorts of applications. What verticals are you looking at? Where do you see the most growth?
Yeah, absolutely. So Gurdon products are mostly aligned with what I would characterize as location awareness IoT,
Right.
where the positional data is a critical component of what we kind of derive from the IoT devices and kind of analyze and produce intelligence around. So from that point of view, the transportation, which is our core vertical, we see a lot of good growth in it. Also, car rental and car sharing is something that comes up a lot. There's so many very interesting startups internationally and that we work with on flespi side that come up with very innovative business models in that space, which one would look at and say, okay, what can be particularly interesting or exciting. It's been around for such a long time, but there are some really, really interesting spins on that that we're observing. And there are two other ones that I would like to single out, and that's one is the micromobility services. A lot of that in 2020, about 70%, we looked at that in 2020 at the peak of pandemic, about 70% of companies in that space went bankrupt, just disappeared. But the ones who did not, were able to kind of come back up. There's still, it's a challenge.
Right.
Yeah, it's like kind of challenging space, but it's interesting. We see a lot of future in that. And finally, the BLE-enabled asset tracking, right, where attaching dedicated trackers is not feasible financially, economically, and with BLE sensors enabling that, monitoring that is as an alternative, very, very good feasible alternative to go. So those four, I would say, are the ones to watch this year.
Terrific stuff. We're talking with Gurdon, one of our IMC sustaining member companies, and a company that's rolling out some really interesting technologies. And thanks so much, Sergei Leuchanka.
Thank you so much, Kit. My pleasure.